Hello, this is High Templar with the new episode of my Total War Warhammer mod reviews, and today we'll be talking about Cataph's Kraka Drak Norse Dwarfs, which is a mod that adds a new faction into a game. And at the beginning of this video, I will tell you what this mod is generally about, then we will jump into the campaign and I will show you how it works in general, and then I will start a very detailed analysis of all the buildings, technologies, units, etc. So let's start with that. Firstly, the mod itself adds a new faction, Kraka Drak, in the multiplayer that you can play. And it adds new Warlord and some new units that you can see here, like this special hero that we have, who is actually a runesmith, but a very special runesmith. You cannot pick abilities for him, his set cost, but you can actually give ranks to him, which is, interesting. And he has some special abilities of his own. Then we have few new melee units. Those guys can recruit some Norscan warriors, but only 3 of them, or Norscan horsemen, but only very basics and only 2 of them. So, as you can see, this is actually gives us a lot of flexibility. Those new units are very nicely added. They are giving some new options, but they are not overpowered. And basically it enriches the unit roster, but not making dwarves play like other factions. They still do play like dwarves. They only have those 2 units of cavalry and that's it. So you still won't be able to do anything special, but you will be able to do something. And I do like that. I would rather not have those horsemen, but I do understand why they were added. So, as I told you, this mod adds new technologies, new buildings, new lords, new skills. So let's have a look into the campaign. And for the campaign, I will have to use another mod, because this mod actually do not allow you to play the campaign. I will use Lorcamian Modular Faction Unlocker. So as you can see, I have quite a few of those to play with. Sorry about that. And I will start with the Kraka Drak. As you can see from the very beginning, obviously no faction leader portrait here, but this guy is not anything great. Those lords effects are very weak. He has a very weak starting army. He's a warmonger, powerful melee fighter and leader. Nothing special, right? We'll skip that, obviously. And you have to remember that while this guy is not that great as a legendary lord, we will have some more lord options than the dwarves. And also, there is a fact that Kraka Drak actually starts with the entire province. So they do have entire mountains for themselves, and while they are surrounded by the enemies, it is more than other factions, even the Empire start. Also they start with additional cash, which is very, very nice indeed. So, this is our legendary lord, and there is nothing special about him, even if you look at his skills. Although he does have some very nice skills like this one. I mean, when in Norska, additional income from riding and sacking settlements, I love that touch. Really, I do love it. But apart from that, as you can see, there is nothing special about this guy, right? Nothing that would, Although you need to remember that Axe Lord for this guy adds bonus only to Dwarf Warriors and Miners, but the Pride of Dragon Keep, which is, equivalent of upgraded version in this campaign, gives us some bonus for the Longbeards, Slayers, Grombakas, all the added units are here. So Stormbeards and everything else. That is very, very useful indeed, because those units are actually very versatile, and this bonus will give a lot of a lot of power into them, basically. So there you go. Some additional armor and defenses also here. So, nothing special about this guy, but we have a new lord. So let's recruit a warlord. A phlegmatic warlord? And the warlord is totally different. Firstly, as you can see, he does have, for example, warding anvil, which gives additional ward save to the entire hero army of 5%, which is not nothing. Then his sword with the Scared Veteran plus 10%, which is also very nice. He has this skill, Patrol Bodyguard, which gives some bonus to sorry about that, to the Warbearers units and to Stormbirds units. So those new units will be additionally buffed by this guy. And he only have Axelord. He doesn't have anything anymore here. So he's good only for the armies that will have basic. So he was only good for armies that will only have basic troops. No advanced troop, no longbeards. And I don't like to play this way, but I might for the dwarves. For the other factions, yes, very much so. I have 1 or 2 deadbolts, actually 2 or 3 deadbolts more like it, which have very elite units, and then I have few 3, 4, 7 armies with very basic units that are used there to keep peace, to support, to take out the less powerful foes, basically. But for dwarves, I went with longbeards at least, because they were so great compared to dwarf warriors and not that more expensive. With this guy, I might do otherwise. Also, we have this Snow and Blood and the Wen in Norska. So everything's here. And we have lots of those and inquiring minds here, so we can buff our research quite some. And we also have Rune of Negation here, which is, not nothing. You can use those. And some quite new runes that are adding some abilities for us. Like this Rune of Hunter, which actually gives us bonus versus large. That's very nice in my opinion. So there is this guy. And I was talking about technologies, so let's jump into technologies and see what's there. So as you can see, totally different tech tree. We do have some technologies that are buffing us. So decreasing construction cost, recruitment cost, buffing slayers, everything here for those 3 skills are buffing slayers. Then we have some income, public order growth, etc. Some more income, right? And this is at the pinnacle of the research here, when we have some additional growth, additional public order. But mind you, these are not very great skills. Like this one gives you +5 only growth in all provinces. +5 is not great. +10 here. Nothing very special about it. Some income from building, some diplomatic relations with the empire. Here we have reduction to corruption, quite obviously. And then only 3 although. And I don't know how it works, because normally if you have 3 here and 3 here, the second one gives you absolutely nothing. Because it's not incremental. It's, if the first one is giving you +3 and the next one is giving you +10, that means you are getting only additional 2 with the second one. So I don't know what's the deal here. But here we have some quite substantial bonuses to some, for example, to all shielded units, or to longbeards, wardbearers, stormbeards, etc. So we are getting some nice buffs, but there is also another set of technologies like here. And starting with Everlasting War, which costs 5 turns to develop, but gives you -20 growth. So you should put it when you are pretty well developed already with your empire, but gives you some very nice buffs. Like your melee infantry -20% upkeep, that's huge. and your missile infantry -10, and then your income from sacking and raiding. That's quite nice. And then you have 3 skills that cost only 1 turn to develop, but 3000 gold with each, and gives you some very nice things. Like here we are getting the Ogre Three Finger. This is a runesmith hero that I showed you. You are unlocking him, you will be able to recruit him, and also Pathfinders and Ogre Blades. And then we are getting some buffs to Norse units. Not very powerful because you won't have many of them, but you can have. This one is actually quite strange because it really is double-edged sword. And then we have this one, which I wouldn't take because, income from building for the dwarves and 1 miners, which I never really normally recruit. So we have some nice technologies, and then finally we have buildings. We do have few new buildings here. Firstly, with the ward stones that are quite well defending against sorry about that, vampiric and chaos corruption. And you need to defend against chaos corruption because you will be in a whole lot of trouble. And then we have Amber Throne instead of the High Throne, obviously. The rest of them looks pretty much the same way, although we do have new things like, Ogre Three Fingers recruitable here, or some Stormbeats, Huskarls, all those units from the Hall of Oaths. We do have Trading Depot, so yeah, that's pretty much it. And the same for here, but we do start with the Brewery, and this one has nothing special at all. So we have few new buildings, so we have few new skills, and we have few new units. Now, if we are starting, we are starting with lots of money here, so let's expand our empire as fast as possible. We probably need to do this, although construction cost -20% would probably give you a lot, and recruitment cost for Quellerers and Rangers. Now, and obviously we need to establish some trade relations, and we can from the very beginning, which is a nice touch because, normally it's hard. So yeah, and obviously getting some more dwarf warriors at the very beginning, because we cannot get anything more, but we do kind of want to destroy those. We are getting 10% chaos corruption, so trending towards 100. We will need to take care of that very, very fast indeed. We will have some rebellions to squash, and there is not much we can do about it. We can probably get that growth going for only 1000. So yeah, and we will get some new heroes and other things later on. Either way, what I wanted to show you about those guys is that it is very important. Now, reduction to vampire corruption. It's vampire corruption. You need to mind that vampire corruption right now is pretty big. Like here, you have a 10% change per turn. You can, try to stall it, or you will want to fight with it. Either way, I should be able to take out those guys and go back before something major will start, because we know the rebellions will start in Kraka Drak, and we should be very well defended against those. And we do not start with actually any war, but the Varg are encroaching on our land. We do have ambush and encampment stance, but for encampment we have to have 50%. And this guy actually starts with the sacking bonus of 25% also. It's in his skills somewhere. Either way, what would I want to do with those guys? I will not obviously make a let's play of that. I just wanted to show you what I would do. You don't have to actually attack those guys. You can play turtle. And there is nothing wrong with playing turtle. I'm just very aggressive player. So I just wanted to show you that you will be getting only 1000 from the sacking displays, because that's very beginning of the game, right? But you can level your guy, and this is, in my opinion, very, very, very important at the very beginning of the game. And I also want to block the other guys from being able to, build anything. And I also can build right now another lord who will be, I would normally go for the rune lord, but probably I will go with Warlock just to, play with it. And right now we are getting 14%, right? Trending towards 50%, and as you can imagine, building this will ward any corruption very, very quickly. But like I said, we don't have any, and even this one corruption, blocking this one corruption was all allowed you to stop this chaos corruption from increasing quite substantially, because we have now 3-3 basically, and this gives you some room to maneuver. At least it gives me some room to maneuver. And also what I would want with these guys, I would want to discover those decrease in buildings, so I can build for less. This will allow me to get a lot of discounts, because all those buildings, very, very expensive. This will be thousands upon thousands of money that I will be able to not spend basically. So it's as good as I would get them. Like I said, I would not be actually playing this campaign for very long. I just wanted to show you how I would play it. I would not turtle. I would get all of that. I would go back with this guy, because I really need those skills for this guy. I actually had another rune lord. That was my oversight. I would normally not, get that guy. I can go back here right now, even use underway to avoid the attrition basically. You need to remember to avoid this attrition, and in 2 minutes we will start with the units review, because that's also very important. So if you are moving this guy, you might as well move him in the underway, because he will not be losing men, and he will be replenishing quite fast on your own territory. And with a surplus of 51, we should be getting something pretty fast. I should be getting actually more troops for this guy, but maybe one more turn will not break anything. We need to build our economy. This is actually very different from most other from most other Let's Plays that I did. Hello there. You have actually you can start with your economy. You cannot, in most others you don't have any. Just to make him more miserable. I didn't do it for the money. I won't do with Axelord for this guy. Some more ammo and missile damage for the long range guys. This is what I definitely want to have. And I can start replenish. As you can see right now, quite fast. I might add. You can never have too few quarrelers for this guy. And with this, I will not go here. I will go definitely here to boost my income, growth, and everything else. This 3, right? That was just to get things starting. That would give me most money. Just plain numbers. Nothing. There is nothing else to it. And that's how I would start, basically. Maybe, get more guys here. Leave these guys out. I didn't actually thought about it because that was very, very short play. Now, let's go into the units very fast, so I can show you what I think about those guys. But this is generally how the campaign plays, what I think about technologies and such. I would start with building an economy, getting some guys out, and probably getting some new settlements in the mountains that I can, probably the Red Eye. The Red Eye is a very nice target. I can take them out. Or the basically the problem with those dwarves is that you are surrounded by the factions that you cannot take over. You have to sack them or ride them, and then you have to take over some factions that actually are, dwarves or orcs. And the closest one is the Red Eye. But this is not a bad faction to take, basically. So, let's go quickly into the units. Let's clear that, because I was, preparing that for a review. Let's compare the Warlord to a Lord. As you can see, pretty much the same guy. He does have magical attack, but he, doesn't have as much melee attack or defense. He will actually lose to most lords because he has, even with this weapon strength, that much lower melee attack and defense will make him lose, and especially magical damage, because dwarves have magic resistance, which is not nothing, quite obviously. And he has some very nice skills, as I showed you before. So he does have Rune of Negation, Rune of Fire, which will actually make magical and fire damage at the same time. And this is tear-shaped attack. And Rune of Watching Dark, which gives minus 30 leadership. Yeah, minus 30. That most units, unless undead, most units will actually run away. And this is area of effect. So, pretty nice. Rune of Fire is also not so bad, especially against those trolls. Then we have, then we have our hero. And let's compare him to the Runesmith. He has a bit more health. The other stats are, lower. I mean, attack is greater, but defense is lower. The weapon strength is significantly lower. And the armor is so low that this guy will actually be more brittle and will die faster in the battlefield. However, he does have frenzy and regeneration, which is very, very important. And he has magic resistance 25 normally, but like I said, Frenzy. Some very nice runes. So this is Master Rune of Recovering, which recovering means actually, dying. And this will not only gives your... this will actually deal damage to your enemy and for 12 seconds. And this is area of effect with the effective range of 15 meters. So, you've seen spells like that before. However, this will drain your vigor, so you have to be worried about that. Then we have a Rune of Beauty. You are getting the pattern here, right? Recovering is damaging, Beauty is causing terror, and this is also very, very nice indeed, because its effect range is 45%. That means it is actually causing terror to all units in the area of, all your allies in the 45 meters, this is quite a huge area, are actually now causing terror. And this is very, very, very powerful indeed. And then we have Rune of Slaughter, which actually gives you magical resistance plus 80%. And minus 100 missile damage, armor piercing damage, or weapon damage. So, it will allow you to survive. And this is Rune of Slaughter, appropriately named as before. But so your guys will stop actually dealing most of the damage, but they will also stop taking the damage. And this is very, very useful for dwarves when they are getting charged, for example. And if you are actually dealing non-armor piercing damage. But that's less important because I will not get into the mechanics right now. So the Stormbirds is a new unit, and I will have to compare them to the Longbeards. Stormbirds are actually pretty much the same. They have bit less life, they have bit less leadership, they have bit more speed and melee, less defense and more charge bonus. Are they worth that much? They might be. With that charge bonus, in the speed, they actually might be worth that additional 100. But they are not obvious choice, right? Very nice unit. Gives you a bit more flexibility, but it's not changing things drastically. However, they are actually siege attackers and they do have vanguard deployment. So, remember that. They are useful in their own way. Then we have Ogre Blades. And those guys are also... So they are dual wielding infantry. And because they are non-armor piercing, I would still have to compare them to the Longbeards. And they do have frenzy and regeneration, but at the same time they are much more brittle than the Longbeards, even though they cost a lot more. They have much less melee defense, less leadership, less armor and less health. There is only 80 of them, but they do have a lot more weapon strength and a lot more charge bonus. So, unit, unlike most dwarven units that we normally know, which is very, very nice indeed, like Rangers, they are giving you some flexibility, and if you would be playing multiplayer games on this mod, and I see no reason why not, but you probably will have to find somebody to play with, will not be that easy. So if you have a friend, for example. But if you do play multiplayer games, it will be much harder to actually guess what the dwarf player will bring. Then we have Wordbearers. And the Wordbearers are armored and shielded, and I will actually compare them to the next tier unit, that is Ironbreakers. And when you will see them, it will be pretty obvious. Those guys do have charge defense versus large only. They do have, however, magical resistance of 75%. 75. They are 400, they cost 400 less, but they only have 700 less more health, quite some less armor, somewhat less leadership, but these are dwarves, they are not running away anytime soon. Less melee attack and quite less melee defense, but more weapon strength and charge bonus. So they are absolutely a unit that you should consider because they are very cool for their price. So comparing them, for example, to the other unit that we have here, for only 150 more, we do have considerably more defense and magical defense. Basically, yeah. So an option to take, right? Then we have a first unit that is actually surprising. Those guys are bonus versus infantry. Those guys are anti-infantry, and they have actually substantial bonus versus infantry of 10. They are damage dealers. They have 40 speed, and the only unit I can compare them to is Slayers. Slayers have enormous bonus versus large, and they have armor piercing of 14. Those guys have armor piercing of 8, but they do have bonus versus infantry. They have more armor, less health, less leadership, obviously they are not unbreakable, but they have same speed, more melee attack and more defense. So they are what Slayers would be if they would be anti-infantry. And this is very, very nice indeed. And I do like this. I do like this a lot. And quite obviously those guys have immune to psychology also and encourage, which is not nothing. Our hero also have encourage, if my memory serves me well. No? Yes, he does. And the last unit here would be Huskars. Sorry. And the Huskars I will compare with the Hammerers. They basically fill the same role, but they are slightly different. As you can see, they do have magical damage, but less melee attack, more defense. They have less weapon strength, but they do have bonus versus large of only 5 still, but they would be useful versus large, and they would be pretty useful versus normal units also, as you can see with those stats. They do have armor piercing of 35. So, enormous armor piercing for those guys. There is only 80 of them versus 100 hammerers. But it is an option that you can consider if you are not using Slayers. They have high armor. And while Slayers have enormous bonus versus large, those guys will still do some damage. Then going to the missile infantry, we have spy gunners. Missile infantry I love for the Kraka Drak. Spy gunners is your cheap infantry. There is 100 of them, not 80, 100 of them. And let's compare them to the Thunderers. 80 Thunderers, 100 of those guys. Those guys have more health, more leadership, but significantly less melee attack and defense. They have less weapon strength, but armor piercing. They have significantly less ammo and significantly shorter range. Significantly so. But they have enormous missile damage. Enormous missile damage with the reload time of 14 seconds. And this is very important. Those guys have reload time of 11 seconds and they have 22 ammo. Those guys have only 10 ammo, but with 14 seconds. That means they will be firing, they will be not firing half as, they will be still firing for quite some time, and they will be dealing enormous damage to your enemy, because there is more of them than Thunderers, and they deal a lot more damage. However, for a slightly short amount of time. But when was the last time you actually ran out of ammo on the battlefield? So, very, very, very powerful unit. Slightly overpowered in my opinion, but very nice indeed. They are based on the Free City Militia, obviously, but a lot more powerful. A lot more powerful. They do have Vanguard deployment, which is even more powerful. The range is, a problem because they have very, very low melee attack and defense stats. But if you can micro it well, they will destroy your enemies. Absolutely destroy. The other ones are Pathfinders, which you've probably already seen, and let's compare them to the Warlords. So they have a lot more health, slightly less health, somewhat leadership and melee attack, nothing great there. Charge bonus, nothing important. Ammo a lot less, but it is magical. And then they have only 60 range, but quite more missile damage. However, those guys are 80, those guys are 60. So this additional missile damage is actually misleading. They will not actually... They will not actually deal more damage. They will deal similar amount of damage on a shorter range, and their ammo will drop a lot faster because their reload time is 8 seconds. Why they are here? I don't know. In my opinion, they are very, very much underpowered. Even though their ghosts are striders and they have Vanguard deployment, I would not buy them at all. So, not really sure what's there. They are brittle. Obviously, they have magical damage, so that's useful because dwarves do not have many units like that, and they cannot take Fire Sorcerer on Shadow Sorcerer, which will be the new thing in few days. Right? And finally, we have Rock Splitters, and Rock Splitters should be compared to those guys actually. So, Skulder Guard, Iron Drakes, those guys, or to normal, they are like normal Iron Drakes, but they have more range and they have armor piercing damage. Quite substantial actually. The reload time is 70 seconds compared to those guys, which are actually 7, right? But they do a lot of armor piercing damage to your enemies. If you micro that correctly, they will absolutely destroy your enemies. But they have a lot less armor, so you have to be very careful about that. And compared to those Iron Drakes, which are dealing also armor piercing damage, it seems like they are better, but mind you, the Skulker Guard actually deal area of effect armor piercing damage because that's team. Those guys have higher range though, and if you do hit a unit, it's more armor piercing damage. So it seems to be, conflicting, but I'm not sure which unit is actually better, but it is a very good balanced unit and I do like it a lot. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You can also compare it to the Trollhammer torpedoes. But the Trollhammer torpedoes are obviously... those guys are actually slightly less powerful than Trollhammer torpedoes. Because they are cheaper. There is nothing else to do. And I haven't seen actually anyone bringing Trollhammer torpedoes in a game, only those guys, which is better choice in my opinion. And yeah, that's pretty much it. This is all because we have no more units. We only have those Norscan horsemen and those Norscan warriors, which is an option to bring if your enemy is expecting a lot of armored troops. You have some more options to bring, not as heavily armored as before. Like, those guys, 25, or the Norscans, or, And the Norscan Horseman gives you a bit of flexibility. Not much, but a bit of flexibility to cover your flanks if it will be necessary. However, they do cost a lot more because that's not really compatible with the previous patch. Now those guys cost only 500. So keep that in mind. If I go to Chaos Warriors here, those guys will be for 500. These are throwing axes? No, they aren't. They are actually. They are throwing axemen, so it's not so bad. I haven't noticed that because of the name, but now I can see those guys actually dealing armor piercing damage. So my bad here. So they are in fact quite nice. Yeah, they are very, very, very nice indeed. For the dwarves in the multiplayer battles, I don't particularly like that because I am a firm believer that dwarves should not have it. Not because it's impossible for them to recruit those guys, because it is, from the lore perspective it is, but from the game perspective there is a certain theme to those guys and it should be followed. And yeah, this is it. I hope you like it. If you did, press like, comment if you will, and see my other videos. I do mechanics videos and DLC speculation and mechanics videos and mod reviews videos for Total War series, but I also do let's plays of Total War series and other games. Thank you for watching, and see you later.